The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the show. A lot of stuff to get to. First of all, breaking news out of Libya. The U.S. ambassador to Libya, J. Christopher Stevens, along with 3 embassy staffers, have been killed in an attack on the American consulate in Benghazi. This happened when a mob of protesters and gunmen overwhelmed the U.S. consulate, set fire to it, in outrage over a film that ridicules Islam's prophet Muhammad. Now, Libya's new president already apologized for the attack today, which underlined the lawlessness plaguing the entire region. What's interesting is that the promotion of this movie that ridicules Prophet Muhammad is linked to Terry Jones. Remember Terry Jones, the Quran burner who has been interviewed on this program in 2010, I believe it was, and stopped at, I think it took a call from President Obama or Donald Rumsfeld for him to not burn the Qurans. Eventually he said, oh, you know what, I do want the publicity. So like a year later he burned the Qurans, but by then nobody cared anymore. Maybe it wasn't a full year later. He's linked to this.
Okay, not surprising.
I emailed the Dove World Outreach Center asking for an interview right away with the good pastor. I have a number of questions for him. Haven't heard back so far, Lewis. Not surprising.
I don't think you will.
Ambassador Chris Stevens was 52 years old. He died as he and a group of embassy employees went to the consulate to try to evacuate staff as a crowd of hundreds attacked the consulate yesterday, last night. A lot of them firing machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, so on and so forth. Very, very sad story. Mitt Romney right away coming out and criticizing a statement he credits President Obama with having made, which he claims is apologizing for offending Muslims. Of course, it was actually, turns out, Mitt Romney again has his foot in his mouth. It was a statement released prior to this particular incident. If you actually just look at the timeline, Mitt Romney again putting his foot in his mouth, trying to politicize this incident and grasping at all straws, given the fact that his campaign has been particularly ridiculed and absurd since that ridiculous Republican National Convention. Mitt Romney again putting his foot in his mouth. And tomorrow, in our Worldview with Dennis Campbell segment, we're actually going to talk to Dennis Campbell about what is the reaction overseas to what Mitt Romney said and to what took place in Libya. What do you think about this story?
So many things. I don't think it's okay to be afraid of poking fun at or insulting someone's religion. I mean, everyone should have the right to do that. This is America, right? First Amendment.
Okay.
And if what you're claiming about Muslims is that they're godless, lawless, murderers, honestly, the best thing to do would probably not be to murder people in retaliation for making those claims.
Right.
So, I mean, on both sides here, it's just complete absurdity.
It is, absolutely. And also, there's a lot of layers to this, and we're really going to unpack them tomorrow, so I won't get in. We'll have more details tomorrow as well. Also, the Chicago Teachers Union strike is now entering its 3rd day. Under the leadership of the Caucus of Rank-and-File Educators, the Chicago Teachers Union pushed hard in negotiations with the city. Early on, the teachers union made the decision to decline an offer of pay increases combined with layoffs. The city wouldn't agree to the teachers union's core demands, including expanding art programs, music programs at underfunded schools, etc. They voted overwhelmingly, 90% of teachers and 98% of those who cast ballots, to authorize the strike. It doesn't look right now, Lewis, like the strike is going to be breaking anytime soon, at least as of us going on the air.
Yeah, can you imagine if we were in school and something like this happened to our schools? It'd be like the kids must be loving it.
Well, 350,000 students are being kept out of school. It is a question, you know, at the time, I could remember being in high school at the time, and I probably would have loved it, to be completely honest. Now, of course, having a completely different understanding of what this means for the teachers and what it means for education and so many of the implications that are there, different perspective for sure, but I wonder what the kids do think.
Yeah, now there is a lot of uproar over this from people who claim that Chicago teachers actually are some of the highest paid in the country.
Which, of course, is terrible. It's terrible for teachers to be well paid.
But, you know, they're kind of claiming this is hypocrisy or something of the sort. Well,
Chicago Teachers Union President Karen Lewis said late yesterday afternoon, there has not been as much movement as we would hope. There's been, let's put it this way, centimeters and we're still kilometers apart. So we'll see what happens. President Obama has been mostly avoiding weighing in on this.
Apparently, we're using the metric system now.
We are now, of course. Part of why that school system must be so great, and those teachers are making so much. They know the logic of the metric system.
Yeah.
President Obama seems to just kind of be avoiding weighing in on this, and it's understandable because he's going to end up getting between unions, teachers, Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago, and voters. It's probably the right thing to do politically. Does it make any difference whether he weighs in or not? Republicans, of course, being critical of President Obama for not getting involved, but is this really even an issue that the president needs to be involved in the nitty-gritty of? I don't know.
I would say no, and not only because he's running a campaign right now. I think this is something he can and should avoid, but it would be a very easy way to get into hot water if he did.
The upside seems limited. We've heard that President Obama doesn't decide what to do based on the political repercussions, but it almost seems like he doesn't even really have anything that he could add by getting involved.
Right, yeah.
Interesting. We'll keep an eye on that as well. California Proposition 37. Have you heard of this, Lewis?
Yes.
California Proposition 37 would mandate labeling of genetically engineered food. Now, this is fascinating because when we look at this is on the ballot for November 6th. Let's look at what it does first, Lewis. If it's approved by voters, it will, number one, require labeling on raw or processed food offered for sale if the food is made from plants or animals with genetic material changed in specific ways. It would also prohibit labeling or advertising any of those items as natural. It would also exempt from this requirement foods that are certified organic, unintentionally produced with genetically engineered material, made from animals fed or injected with genetically engineered material, but not genetically engineered themselves, processed with or containing only small amounts of these ingredients, etc. So it's important, but it also has some reasonable exemptions where it's not going to be this, fist from the sky that's going to completely turn everything upside down in terms of what's been doing if even the animals are fed with some genetically engineered material. Seems very reasonable to me.
Yeah. Are you for this?
I am for this. Now, what are the reasons to be for it? There's a number of different reasons. Number one, I feel like you should have the right to know as much as possible what's in your food. And right now we live in a time where increasingly people don't know what's in their food, and they don't know that they need to know what's in their food. So I think this is good. And I know the argument for many would be it's not the government's job to play babysitter with what people are eating. However, I think that this is just a basic level of not a lot of people know about what genetically modified or engineered means, and it's perfectly reasonable that foods that are that should have to say that.
Right. Just as we believe you need full transparency in government, you also need it in the ingredients of the food you're buying at the store.
And this is not some U.S.-only over-regulation thing. Over 40 countries around the world already require labels for genetically modified foods. The U.S. is not leading the pack on over-regulation. We're actually lagging behind on this.
Right.
Now, who is opposing this? This is fascinating. Well, of course, the California Republican Party is opposing this. But who else is opposing this? Well, Monsanto has put in over $4 million opposing this. PepsiCo has put in almost $2 million to oppose this. And I have a long list here. Bayer Crop Science, $1.6 million. Dow AgriScience, $1.2 million. Nestle, $1.2 million. Coca-Cola North America, $1.1 million. Conagra, Kellogg's, General Mills, Hershey's, Smucker's, Ocean Spray, Cargill, Del Monte, Mars, Campbell Soup. We know those, don't we, Lewis?
Yep.
What do you
Very
think?
familiar.
Why are they doing this?
No surprise. They think it's going to hurt their sales when they have to put on their food that things have been genetically modified.
Well, you know what the argument that's being made is? The argument that's being made is, listen, the companies that are supporting this, which include Nature's Path, Amy's, Annie's, the Organic Consumers Association, they're in a business that is already charging a premium because they are labeling their products in this way, saying we are not doing any of these things, or they are organic, etc. And that by forcing companies that aren't organic or that are using genetic modifications, you're essentially increasing their costs by having them have to do even more, and therefore shrinking that premium that people are paying for the organic food, so that it's a marketing ploy. What's your reaction to that? Minatan, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think this is just an ethical issue. I mean, we should never go by what, even if it were bad for the market, for either of the two parties, the ones who grow genetically modified food or the ones that don't. This is an ethical issue. People have to be able to find out without doing a half-hour Google search what's in the food that they eat. It's just a basic level of transparency.
I completely agree with that. For me, it should not be relevant. There's just, this is the basic that's needed. If it costs you more, listen, you make a lot of money. The more you make, the more products you have to relabel. That's because you're selling a lot of products. That's okay with me.
Yeah, it has to be done, and I hope this doesn't just stay in California. This has to be done nationwide.
And a lot of people saying this could lead to that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at a couple other funny things that have been going on. A birther event, billed as the biggest birther event of the year, which was scheduled for later in September in Phoenix, Arizona, has been canceled because there haven't been adequate ticket sales. In other words, people don't want to go to this nonsense. This was going to be the Sheriff Joe event. It was going to include, of course, our good friend Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio, as well as former Army Lieutenant Colonel Terrence Lakin, who, if you forgot who he is, he's the guy who refused to go to Afghanistan because he said he just didn't believe President Obama was legitimately in office. Therefore, why would he be able to send him to Afghanistan? Just doesn't make sense.
Right.
As well as Pat Boone. How could such a star-studded event not sell out right away, Lewis? Who wouldn't want to hang out with Sheriff Joe and Pat Boone?
Especially in Arizona.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm surprised that ticket sales are low.
Organizers plan to use the event to tell Congress to take up Joe Arpaio's year-long investigation into President Obama's supposedly fake birth certificate. It's sad that you can't even get enough crazy people together to have the biggest birther event of the year, isn't it?
It's a good sign. It really is. It's a good sign. Because if you told me about this and didn't tell me that it was canceled due to low ticket sales, I'd tell you this event would sold out months ago.
You're surprised it didn't do this well.
Yeah.
Wow. Also, white supremacist groups are going to meet in eastern Tennessee. Have you heard of Stormfront, Lewis? It's kind of like the Facebook for white supremacists.
Right.
It's online. It's a virtual gathering for like-minded people to talk about white supremacy. The Tennessee Conference represents a rare offline gathering. A lot of these times, these guys don't really want it, mostly men, don't want to be seen anywhere in real life. They prefer to kind of sit behind their computers.
Because they're cowards.
Your words, not mine.
Mm-hmm.
The two-day agenda includes a luncheon. It includes workshops on immigration, political organizing, and communications by some of the white supremacist movement's best-known contemporary leaders. You know who's going to be there?
No.
Former presidential candidate and white supremacist and former KKK member David Duke. And fascinating, he's going to lead an informal nature walk through the Smoky Mountains on day 2 of the conference.
That sounds nice.
Yeah. Former Grand Wizard, of course. A nature walk with David Duke sounds really nice. Maybe show what kinds of trees were the ones used for lynchings, for example. I'm sure it's a good retrospective on a lot of different things.
I'm sure it will be very informative.
Now, people defend David Duke. Now, I guess it's becoming the in thing to say, well, listen, a lot of the allegations about David Duke are not fair. You only have to go to his website to see the vile stuff that he's preaching against the Jewish people. I went onto his website. What did I find? I have it in my notes here. I went on there. He talks about, he has a great article called Jewish Supremacist Hatred of Gentiles Founded in That Religion. He has one called U.S. Zionist Supremacists Demand Taxpayer Cash to Prevent Assimilation, and a great article about how it's normal for Jews to spit on Christians in Jerusalem. So it's a well-rounded website, I would say.
Yeah, very, very well thought out, well-rounded.
I would be fascinated to get video of that nature walk with David Duke.
You know what? It'd probably be pretty dull.
You think so?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, too bad. If you don't like the fact that this show is only an hour long, you can get the bonus show. The bonus show is produced and hosted by Louis Motamedi, producer Louis Motamedi. Today we've got some great stories, including scientists creating memories in brains chemically, artificially. I don't know what the right word is. Technologically, Louis.
Technologically?
Yeah.
Sure.
We'll also talk about a woman who finds her ex-boyfriend living in her attic 12 years after they broke up. It's a bizarre story, and plenty more. DavidPakman.com/membership, pennies a day, the best way to support the show and strong independent media. Stay tuned, plenty more after this.
The David Pakman Show at DavidPakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
You can support the David Pakman Show free by doing all of your Amazon.com shopping through the black banner at davidpakman.com. We also send out the link on Facebook and on Twitter. You just click it, bookmark it. Anytime you shop at Amazon, use that link, and you'll send 7% of your purchase to us and take it away from Amazon. That's actually pretty cool, isn't it, Louis?
Yeah, I like that.
Very good. You can also become a David Pakman Show member, which is made possible in part by liberalbias.com. We've actually unearthed some top secret data which shows that global warming is worse in Massachusetts than Texas, which is, of course, evidence of a liberal plot to create global warming and then blame it on conservatives. That's the kind of great cutting-edge reporting you'll get at liberalbias.com.
Every day.
Today's new David Pakman Show member of the day is Stephen Tompkins. It's great to have Stephen aboard as a David Pakman Show member. He is going a long way to support the show and strong independent media. So thanks so much to Stephen and to all David Pakman Show members who are watching on our YouTube live stream, Louis, which now is live Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. on the West Coast.
Happening right now. Of course, if you're watching the live stream, you'd already know that.
And if you're not, then it's not really happening right now.
Right.
Cancels out. Sheldon Adelson is one of Mitt Romney's biggest funders, to the tune of, some say, as much as $100 million. It turns out it's really just an investment for Sheldon Adelson, because a new analysis from a new report actually looks at how Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan tax policy could benefit Sheldon Adelson, and it's pretty incredible. He could save $2 billion in taxes if President Mitt Romney becomes a reality, which really makes the $100 million he's throwing in pretty small potatoes.
Pretty minimal investment.
So how would this happen? Well, the report says a couple things. Number one, by cutting top tax rates, that would save Adelson about $1.5 million a year on his annual compensation as chief executive of his casino company. How else could he save? Maintaining special low rates on dividends, potentially saving Adelson nearly $120 million on a single year's worth of dividends, would be more than enough alone to get back his $100 million in donations. Maintaining special low rates on capital gains would allow him to make back his political donations and capital gains tax cuts just by selling a fraction of his stock. So potentially, he waits for the low capital gains rates to be extended, which they would be by Mitt Romney, and then he sells a little bit of the stock that he owns, saves an incredible amount of money compared to what it would be if those capital gains reductions were to expire.
Right.
And then it would provide a tax windfall of about $1.2 billion to Adelson's company, Las Vegas Sands Corporation, on untaxed profits from its Asian casinos, as well as a tax exemption for future overseas profits. This is incredible. And then lastly, it would potentially eliminate the estate tax, which could provide close to a $9 billion windfall to Adelson's heirs. So really, this is an investment for Adelson. This is an investment in his personal financial future, rather than a, let's put it this way. He's not pumping all the money into Romney's campaign in an altruistic effort to make things better for the poor or middle class.
Yeah. And if you think that all of these tax breaks and cuts for this man are going to help our economy, you're completely delusional.
No question about it.
Yeah.
So there it is. Sheldon Adelson investing $100 million to potentially save billions with a B. I was sent this video, which I know is not a new video of President Obama, so please don't flood my inbox and YouTube comments saying this is an old video, of a kid asking President Obama, why do people hate you? Now, the video is back from 2009. Things have escalated in an incredibly exponential way regarding the President Obama hate, the accusations embroiled in racism, and so many other things that are going on. And I thought it was actually interesting, in light of what's gone on in the 3 years since this video was filmed, listening to President Obama's explanation now, I found pretty interesting. Let's take a listen to it.
Young man right here. I'm going to let him use my special mic. Hey, this is a big guy. Don't go, oh, come on, man. I mean, this is a... All right, what's your name?
Terrence Scott. Huh? Terrence Scott.
Terrence Scott. What do you have to say?
I have to say why people hate you and why they supposed to love you, and God is love, and
that's what I'm talking about.
Quite a kid.
Yeah, come on. Hey, that's what I'm talking about. Terrence.
All right, so now let's hear
appreciate
the
that.
answer, because
what
think about
grade
it
are you
in
in?
light of today, not 3 years ago.
You're in 4th grade? Well, now, first of all, I did get elected president, so not everybody hates me now. I don't want you to. I got a whole lot of votes. I want to make sure everybody understands. But you know what is true is if you were watching TV lately, it seems like everybody's just getting mad all the time. And I think that you've got to take it with a grain of salt. Some of it is just what's called politics, where once one party wins, then the other party kind of it feels like it needs to poke you a little bit.
All right, so let's stop it there for a second. That's exactly what is going on to the nth degree. And what am I talking about, Lewis? I'm talking about Republicans getting together and very specifically, very carefully saying, we're going to do everything we can just to stick it to Obama a little bit, as Obama is saying, to make it so that regardless of whether jobs aren't created, it's bad for businesses, it's bad for the people, it'll get Obama out of office. So it's really taking what President Obama said 3 years ago and exploding it into what's happening today.
Right.
Let's listen to a little bit more of this.
To keep you on your toes. And so you shouldn't take it too seriously. And then sometimes, as I said before, people just, I think they're worried about their own lives. A lot of people are losing their jobs right now. A lot of people are losing their health care, or they've lost their homes to foreclosure. And they're feeling frustrated. And when you're president of the United States, you got to deal with all of that. That's exactly right.
Okay, so then that's the last part I wanted to get to, which is interesting because it makes us really think about frustration for personal, financial, economic, health, whatever issues one is having, will influence how people vote, separate from the broader trends that we're seeing. So for example, somebody who today doesn't have a job may blame Obama and therefore vote for Mitt Romney, even though if they really realized, why did we get into this jobs disaster in the first place? It's because of the previous guy whose policies are similar to the guy you're going to vote in because you're frustrated with the current president. Mm-hmm. I understand it, but it's sad that the realities and the facts don't get through to a lot of people and they vote based on that.
Yeah, much easier to channel your frustration into the current administration.
Absolutely. So interesting seeing that from 3 years ago, plus a hilarious kid asking the question, really has come so true today in this upcoming election. New government documents show that President Bush ignored numerous warnings prior to the 9/11 attack. Now, we all know, Lewis, about that infamous August 6th, 2001 memo, bin Laden poised to strike, from Richard Clark. We all know about that. It's been talked about many, many times. It turns out, according to the New York Times, that there were actually a number of warnings between May and August of 2001, which the Bush administration ignored. On May 1st, 2001, the Bush White House was told by the CIA that a group presently in the U.S. was planning an attack. What do you think of that, Lewis?
I'm not surprised.
Then on June 22nd, 2001, the Bush White House was told an al-Qaeda attack could be imminent. However, the neoconservatives in the Pentagon told the Bush White House that the CIA had been fooled into believing bin Laden was preparing an attack to distract the U.S. from Saddam Hussein. Imagine that.
Funny.
Even internally, this idea that even an attack would be really just a distraction from Saddam Hussein, and look at what happened. Look at how 9/11 was used to go into Iraq. Incredible.
Yeah, the attack, it's as if the two were one and the same.
Absolutely. So that narrative was existing way before even the attack happened, which is very telling, isn't it, Natan?
Yeah, and I know this is kind of semi-unrelated, but I have a question for Lewis. We talk about the idea that you don't vote and the differences between the parties. Do you really think this would have happened the same way if Al Gore had been president, which arguably he should have been because he won the 2000 election?
Well, now we're going to start getting into my theory about what actually happened on 9/11, which I think is we can't really get into that.
Well, I've been thinking a lot about this, and actually, there's this conspiracy theory that Bush allowed 9/11 to happen. I actually
and then
think
detonated the buildings.
Or whatever, exactly.
Yeah.
I actually think something, which I actually recently heard our friend Tom Hartman also say, which is I don't believe that George W. Bush allowed the 9/11 that took place to happen. I believe that, and as we're seeing here, George W. Bush thought that an attack from bin Laden would be something much smaller. It would be 10 people die, 30 people die. And he can use that to go into Iraq. So there isn't this pressing need to do that much to prevent 30 people dying in a way that might be politically convenient. Do I think he knew what 9/11 was going to be? No, I don't think that. I don't buy into that conspiracy theory. At least I've not seen evidence to that end. I just think George W. Bush had no huge imperative to prevent what he thought was going to be a small attack because it would have been politically advantageous.
That is perfectly possible. I am on board with you. I do believe that Bush allowed the attack to happen. If the attack is exactly what it seems, do I think Al Gore would have allowed it to happen? Probably not.
And again, I'm not saying...
Might it have happened anyway?
I'm using
Yes.
words that may sound like I'm buying into the Bush planned and allowed it to happen as it was, built planes crashing into buildings. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is I believe that Bush was getting warnings about bin Laden the same way he was getting warnings about many others, none of whom were presumed to be something on the scale of 9/11. It was presumed to be something small, which might then be leveraged into foreign policy he wanted to use. Let's take a break. Coming up next, top election prediction expert Alan Lichtman will tell us who is going to win the 2012 election. Guy hasn't been wrong since 1984. What will he say? Stay tuned.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Alan Lichtman is joining me. He is Distinguished Professor of History at American University. He is also the creator of the 13 Keys system for predicting the results of presidential elections. I think a good place to start, Professor, is when did you create this system and how did you create it?
Well, I created it a long time ago, back in 1981, when I was 9 years old, of course. Not exactly. And I would love to tell, you, your audience, and I particularly would like to tell students that I came up with the 13 keys to the White House by spending years in musty libraries, thousands of hours of contemplation. But if I were to tell you that, to quote the late Richard Nixon, that would be wrong. I came across the keys totally by accident. I met that year in 1981, I was at Caltech as a visiting scholar, and I met a man named Volodya Kailas-Borak from Moscow, who was a rare member of both the Soviet and U.S. Academy of Sciences and the world's leading expert in earthquake prediction. And I told him I did mathematical history, and he said, let us collaborate. And I said, no, we're not. I've got to go back to Washington, D.C. Nobody cares about earthquakes. And he said, no, I don't want to collaborate on earthquakes. He said, ever since I went to the United States in 1963, as part of the scientific delegation that negotiated the nuclear test ban treaty, I've been in love with politics. But I live in the Soviet Union. Predicting elections, forget it. It's supreme leader or off with your head. But you know about American presidential elections. And that's how this got started. The theory was that basically you have stability or upheaval based upon the strength and performance of the party holding the White House. The big picture, the economy, foreign policy, social unrest, scandal. And the challenging party and the campaign don't matter. If the party holding the White House loses more than 5 keys, loses 6 or more keys, they're out. 6 strikes and you're out.
Okay,
and
so let's stop there.
The keys are phrased true, false questions. So 6 falses and the party in power loses. Fewer than 6, the party in power wins. And we have since used this system to predict the popular vote outcome. It's a national system of every American presidential election since 1984. That's 7 elections in a row. No other system has that record of advance prediction.
The big question is, applying your system to the upcoming election that's 55 or so days away, who's going to win?
I first predicted the outcome of the 2012 election in January of 2010, when I found that President Obama, the candidate of the party holding the White House, had only 4 negative keys. You need 6 to count them out. So I predicted 2.5 years ago that Obama was going to be reelected, and I have stood by that prediction ever since. In fact, he's gained 1 more key by taking out Osama bin Laden, so he now only has 3 negative keys. It takes 6 negative keys to count him out.
Okay, so my question then becomes, do polls matter? Do the debates matter? Do campaigns matter? All of these things that have transpired and will transpire between your initial prediction, January 2010, and now, none of that is in the keys directly, but does any of that stuff make a difference?
None of that is in the keys directly, and none of that really matters at all. As I said, almost all of my predictions have been made before the campaigns even began. I predicted George W. Bush's reelection in April 2003. That said, obviously, it's not impossible that things happen during a campaign that can matter. It's conceivable a candidate can emerge as, a Ronald Reagan or a Franklin Roosevelt during the campaign, although that's never happened. A horrific foreign policy disaster could occur. The economy could go down the drain. But those kinds of things don't happen. Everybody talks about, the October surprise. Name me one October surprise. They don't occur.
Okay, let me ask you about a couple of these specifically. So, for example, some of the keys seem a little bit subjective. Like, for example, affecting major change in national policy, right? Let's talk about that one, and let's talk about health care, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. That's one that you give to Obama, as Obama has that key. But there's been this strong misinformation campaign around Obamacare such that there isn't really overwhelming support nationally for what it did. So by what standard do we judge whether it is a major achievement? In other words, is it based on some kind of public polling analysis? Is it based on if there is such a thing as an objective analysis? How do you measure that?
Well, it's a very good question. And I have been attacked for, more than 30 years for my system having elements of judgment in it. And my answer to that is several-fold. One, the world is not objective, particularly when you're dealing with human beings. Historians have long known there has to be some degree of judgment. And I got blasted for decades by the professional forecasters. But about 8 years ago, they suddenly changed and they realized that their purely quote-unquote objective mathematical models didn't work. And all of a sudden, my idea of judgmental forecasting became the hottest thing in forecasting. I twice keynoted the International Forecasting Summit. Secondly, they look a lot more subjective when you just see a line on a piece of paper. Here's the key. But when you buy my book, The Keys to the White House, 2012 edition, you will see, number one, every key is very carefully defined. And number two, I've answered these questions 38 times before. And the next answer has to be consistent. And the definition clearly says it's not whether it is popular or not popular measured by the polls, because polls change all the time. 6 months ago, it looked like Obama's health care was much more unpopular than it is today. And in fact, today he's using it in a positive sense. All that key measures is have you in a significant way changed policy from the previous administration. And clearly, health care is not only a change from the previous administration historically, it's something that presidents have been seeking and failing to do since Harry Truman in the 1940s. So by all the standards of the keys and by standards of previous comparison, that was not a difficult call, quite frankly.
All right,
There were more difficult calls than that.
Will you even watch on Election Day? I mean, since you already know what's going to happen, do you even care? Are you that certain that this is just in the bag for Obama?
Well, look, I'm a human being, right? And human beings are never perfect. Am I absolutely convinced, that I'll always be perfect? Of course not. All humans are fallible. Am I absolutely convinced that this is the best system available? Yes. Do I firmly believe it will hold this time? Yes. Will I rush and jump off my roof if it doesn't? No. 7 out of 8 wouldn't be terrible.
All right, distinguished professor of history at American University, Professor Alan Lichtman. Really great to talk to you. I encourage people to get the book and also check out the keys and decide for themselves if they agree with you on all 13.
David, that's really important. It's the world's only do-it-yourself prediction system. Anyone can answer these questions.
All right, thanks so much. Let's take a break. We'll be back with plenty more after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
This is a really strange story. There was this program on the Learning Channel, TLC, about, it's called My Strange Addiction. And one came across my desk, a number of people sent it to me, about Andrea from Marietta, Georgia, who is addicted to eating tape, like Scotch tape, cellophane, sellotape, I guess is what it is, not Scotch tape. And she reports that she eats about 6,000 feet of it every single month. Here's a few seconds of this show, and I have a few thoughts about this. Let's take a listen.
I actually brought you over here to tell you something. What would you think about someone who ate tape?
You said what?
Somebody who like chewed tape, you know.
Playing, right?
I've been eating tape since I was about 13.
Okay, so obviously a bizarre program. I had to call my dad about this. My dad is a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist, and I had a number of questions for him about this. And she goes on to say a lot of the different things about how she eats tape. I asked my dad, is this some kind of diagnosed mental illness? If so, what's the diagnosis? Is there treatment for it? There's a name for this generally called pica, okay? Now, pica is typically more common in kids, and it's usually eating non-nutritive stuff. So for some kids, it's peeling paint off the wall and eating that. For some kids, it's, I don't know, what else do kids eat? Glue or whatever it is in significant amounts. And it's not considered psychosis. It's actually considered a variant of a compulsive type of, obsessive compulsive disorder or some type of compulsion. In other words, the eating of this is not a psychotic thing, it's a compulsive thing. And interestingly enough, on the disease spectrum, it's often, many think that it's associated with some kind of epileptic type of condition, which is interesting as well.
Yep, I remember hearing a story about this, about a woman who ate the inside of cushions, like couch cushions, that
Right.
material, the foam-like material, and yeah, it can really be anything.
Well, now you're talking about adults. So I asked my dad, what's the treatment? He says in children, it really just tends to kind of go away on its own, or sometimes it transforms itself into something else, like just kind of a more run-of-the-mill obsessive-compulsive disorder type of thing with a lot of routines and rituals and that type of thing. But that in adults, it's actually pretty difficult to improve upon. That if somebody has something like this at an adult age, it's not the type of thing that an antipsychotic or SSRIs or any of those types of medications will really help, and that there's not that much that can really be done. I guess the idea would be some kind of effective psychotherapy that could rationalize the person's thinking into no longer needing to do this. I don't know.
My question is, at what point does this catch up with you physically,
I don't know.
biologically? I mean, aren't you going to get like stomach cancer or intestinal cancer, some type of nasty infection? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
your body can't properly digest this stuff, right?
It is very odd. It can't be good for you. Although, I would be curious to see what is the real difference to the body from eating tape to eating some highly, highly processed foods that are out there.
Probably not too different.
I would bet that it's not that different, don't you think, Natan?
Yeah, in fact, there's something called geophagy, I think is the pronunciation, which is eating dirt, which obviously if someone does it in the United States, it's considered to be a mental disorder. But, in the old days, in different cultures around the world, they used to do it. And there are some associated health benefits with eating dirt, assuming that the dirt isn't laced with, biochemical poisons.
Interesting.
Yeah, so something to think about.
Yeah, some people do eat dirt, not like a plate full of dirt, but when they're cooking and doing other things, like the dirt is just kind of there and it's just kind of consumed.
Well, Natan, you're saying something different than just there's
Yeah,
some...
no, I'm talking about taking the dirt and eating it with or without having cooked it first. And I don't know, there's some evidence that it helps, the bacteria in the soil helps to like train your immune system and things
Well,
like that.
I don't know that I would eat raw dirt, but if it was like sautéed, I would probably have dirt.
Yeah, like some nice dirt teriyaki.
If it was properly seasoned. 1 year after the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the first academic study of the military's open service policy has found what, Lewis? Absolutely no negative consequences whatsoever. Big surprise.
Yeah, really, shocker.
The study was published Monday by the Palm Center, which is a research branch of the Williams Institute. It found a number of things, including no overall negative impact on military readiness, no impact on unit cohesion. Remember when that was the favorite talking point of the right? It will affect unit cohesion. No effect. No effect on recruitment, no effect on retention, no effect on morale. Incredible.
But obviously it corrupts the moral fiber of our country.
The fiber has been corrupted. One soldier told the authors of the study that in the initial period after the repeal, he kept hearing derogatory anti-gay language of some form in his unit. Yet when he confronted them and spoke out about the behavior in terms of leadership and professionalism, their conduct improved. Incredible. Because you no longer have to hide your sexuality, you can actually call people out for using anti-gay slurs. And because they're like, oh, wow, this is a person who's serving with me and I respect them and I value them, I'm not going to do that anymore. It seems that, shocker, this has actually improved the situation in the military.
Yeah, I don't see how the opposite could happen. Obviously, it's an improvement.
All right, let's get to a couple voicemails and emails. The voicemail number 219-2-DAVID-P. Here's one on organic food.
Hi, David, Luis, Natan. This is Nina Ananda.
Let's stop right there. Just a note. Lewis we're not Americanizing Lewis's name as if it were L-U-I-S from the Spanish origin. It's L-O-U-I-S. It's just pronounced Lewis. So no need to do the Spanish pronunciation. It's just Lewis.
Sure, yeah.
There we go.
I just had some comments about the recent study on the nutritional value of organic foods versus non-organic foods.
Right.
And I just wanted to comment. I think the framework of the whole debate is kind of obnoxious. The fact is, nutritional value depends on what's in the soil, what's in the nutrients, and the fertilizer in the soil, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So after the fact, we got a lot of emails and voicemails suggesting exactly this, which is there was never any expectation that the nutritional content of food would be different for the sheer fact that it's organic. The question really is it healthier for a number of different reasons?
Absolutely.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
Not only is it healthier, but is it better for the environment long-term for sustainability's sake to have organic products?
Another consideration.
Right.
On the circumcision follow-up, a lot of messages about this. Boo Boo wrote in saying, Lewis, you were disgusting, circumcision is disgusting, and you are a pedophile and a child abuser. I hope your penis withers and your children die.
I can't tell if this is real or fake. It really could go either way.
I think it's real. The Eggman wrote in, and it was brilliant. He said, at what age should a male child be when they can decide for themselves? Unfair question, because it should be at what size, not age. If the kid is big enough to fight off an adult nurse or doctor, then it's a big no. And if you clean an uncircumcised one, it is more likely to go off by itself. Okay, so the Eggman weighing in on the issues of the day, including this controversial topic of circumcision.
And I think also referencing the kid cleaning his gun.
Exactly. We did a story after that yesterday about a guy who shot himself in the penis while cleaning his gun. Of course, it's not a kid, an adult.
Right.
A lot of gun cleaning accidents. Got to keep the gun clean.
Yes, you do.
And on the pizza man picking up President Obama, the conservatives love to turn everything political, similar to the Dixie Chicks condemnation. If a business excitedly welcomed George Bush, it wouldn't cross my mind to boycott them. I judge a business by their products, not whether they share my political views. Regardless, it's one thing not to shop at a business because you don't agree with a shop owner. It's another to lie online about a place to undermine a shop and ruin their company. I may not go to Chick-fil-A myself, but I'm not going to go online and lie about them having rats in the local franchise. Interesting, this is in reference to Yelp reviews turned incredibly negative because this pizza guy from Florida who picked up President Obama the other day is a Republican but votes for Obama, and Republicans very angry with him, trying to destroy his reputation on Yelp.
It was deemed treachery.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's it for today's show. You can get the bonus show. We'll talk about scientists creating memories in brains. We'll talk about a woman finding her ex-boyfriend of 12 years in an attic and much more. DavidPakman.com. See you tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.